This is a video lesson for Tuesday, September 8th, and we are looking at systems of equations. We're going to be using the calculator steps for the first example that we used on Friday. We're going to be making regression equations and then solving a system. So we're looking at price, demand, and supply for cereal. You can see as the price of the cereal goes up in this chart, the demand goes down. More it costs, less people want it. But the price going up is also related to how much supply you have, how much of the product that you have, and they both go up together. So what we're going to do is we're going to write two regression equations. We're going to do one for demand and one for supply, and then we're going to solve that to find what's called the price in equilibrium, which is that perfect price to help you maximize your revenue and your profits. So we're going to use price as the x variable, and we're going to use demand as the y, and that's in the first equation, and then we'll substitute the demand quantity for with the supply quantity as the y value in the second equation. So I have the steps laid out here, and if you can also go to the notes and just follow along the notes without seeing this video if that makes more sense for you and that's how you learn. You're welcome to just go to the notes and read through them and figure it out instead of watching me explain it all. That's entirely up to you. So we're going to make the first equation, and I'm going to start by going to the stats app, and we're going to type in all the price values and the demand values. If you're following along with me, pause the video now and get those values entered in. As you can see over here in the calculator, I have the prices in, I have the demand in, everything's set up, ready to go. So I'm going to follow the same steps that I did on Friday. I'm going to use F1, F1 to do the scatter plot, F1, F1, F2. So we're going to graph it. I'm going to press F1 calculate, F2x, F1 ax plus b, and I have my equation. Now I need you to write this down on your homework sheet. So when you do your homework, make sure you're writing down the equations the calculator is giving you. Some of these steps are going to be done only on the calculator. Other things you have to make sure you write down to get full credit. So we're going to write this equation down. Just going to go one decimal place. That's sufficient for this one. And then we're going to copy it. So we want the calculator to keep hold of this equation also. If you forget to copy it, you can always just type the equation in yourself when you go to the graph app. But it does have a copy feature. If you press F5 and then execute, it'll copy it in. So if it kicks you back to this screen, that means it's now in the graph app. So now I'm going to go down and make the second equation, and I'm going to replace demand with supply in list 2. So I'm going to go back out, and I'm going to change list 2 to the supply values. If you're following along, pause and enter those now. You can see I now have my supply values in, and I'm going to graph this now. You can see it's going up as the price goes up. Go through the same steps to get the equation, and we're going to go ahead and write this equation down as well. Make sure you write it down in your notes. 92.5 is the slope, and negative 69.1 is the y-intercept. And again, I'm going to copy this one in, but please be careful. Notice it says F5, then arrow down, because when you press F5, it's going to be on y1. Well, that's where our first equation is. So I'm going to arrow down to y2, and I'm going to hit execute again. And now both equations are in y1 and y2. Okay, so let's jump to the next step. We're going to graph these now. So I'm going to press menu, and I'm going to go to the graph app. Now there's one little thing here that you have to remember when you copy things in. You have to press F1. You can see the equal signs are not highlighted. If I press F1, the equal signs will be highlighted. That means they're now turned on. Again, if you don't want to use that copy feature, you can just at this point type them in. Take the rounded decimal equations that you wrote down and just type them into y1 and y2, and that's perfectly fine as well. And then I'm going to graph them by pressing F6, and I can see blue is the demand, supply is red. So where the demand and supply meet is going to be that perfect price point. And we're going to solve that system for that perfect price in the calculator first. So if we press F5 for G solve, that brings up a menu that finds all kinds of things that we're going to be working with throughout the year. But the one we're interested in is F5 intersect, because that's going to find the place where the two lines intersect. And it gives me an x equals 2.66. You can see down here in the bottom of the screen of the calculator, I'm rounding it, so 2.66. And rounding this one, 177. Now I rounded it to two decimal places here because x is price, dollars and cents, and this is how many units you're going to sell or have. So I'm going to just round that to a whole number because that's how many breakfast cereals. And so we're also going to solve these by hand. I'm going to ask you to show your work for solving by hand. So on your homework, what you should have written down at this point are the two equations and the two answers from the calculator. Then you solve it by hand by rewriting those equations. So what I have is y equals negative 142.9x plus 556.3. Second equation is that 92.5x minus 69.1. Now I'm going to solve this using substitution. So that means I'm going to take this first one, and since I know that it's equal to y, I'm going to substitute it in for y into the other equation. Because again, think about it, if this equation is equivalent, if the first equation is equivalent to y, that means I can replace it with y. It's like me saying y equals 7. If I told you y equals 7, when did you plug 7 in for y here? Okay, well I'm telling you that y equals this whole equation circled in red. So I'm going to substitute that in for y, just like I would substitute a number in. So what I get is negative 142.9x. I did not leave myself enough room, 1 second. Plus 556.3 equals the other equation. And it should kind of make sense. I'm setting the two equations equal. Where the two equations meet, where the two lines meet, isn't that where the two equations would be equal? Alright, we're going to solve. Let's solve by taking this right side, and we're going to subtract that over. Negative 92.5x, and that gets the x's together. And you know what, I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this term also. This is just like the ones we've been solving since the second day, where you get all the x's on one side, all the numbers on the other. And so what I end up with, negative 235.4x equals, and over here, negative 625.4. And then when I divide by the negative 235.4 to get x by itself, I would get, when I round, 266. And so, solving this using substitution, again, I put the one equation in for y. So I set the two equations equal to one another, get the x's together, subtract it over the number, I get my x value. But remember, when you're solving a system, you also have to solve for y. So we're going to go back up top here. I'm going to zoom out a little bit to give myself a little more space. I'm going to take this equation, and I'm going to use the second one, the y equals 92.5x. But I now know what x is, so I'm going to put in what I know x to be, 266, minus 69.1. And when you evaluate that, you would end up with approximately 177. So here's the two answers, 2.66 and 177. Now I need to interpret my answer. So what does my answer mean? That means again, x is the price. So that means I'm going to sell these for $2.66, the cereal, and I'm going to have a quantity, how much of the cereal. I should have 177 of this breakfast cereal, 177 units, and sell them for $2.66, and I will maximize my revenue and maximize my profits. Okay, second example, we're not going to use the calculator for this. we're just going to solve it using elimination. It says for the school play, students are asked to sell tickets to the community as a fundraiser. Regular tickets cost $6, senior citizens cost $3. Jack was the top seller, and he brought in $432. We also know that he sold a total of 102 tickets. So we're going to see if we can figure out how many tickets of each type he sold. So we're going to call the regular tickets R, senior citizen tickets S. So we're going to write two equations. First of all, it costs $6 for the regular tickets. So each of those R tickets are $6. So 6 times R. Each of the S tickets costs 3. So that's 3S. So this is how much money he's bringing in. $6 for each R, $3 for each S. And that should equal the total dollar amount that he brought in. So there's one equation. The other equation is we know how many total tickets. So this is the total number of tickets. So how would I write an equation for that? Well, R number of tickets, I don't know how many regular, but whatever he sold, plus S number of tickets should equal 102. So when you combine the two types of tickets together, it tells you how many total tickets, 102. So we're going to solve this equation. So I have 6R plus 3S equals 432. But I need to solve for one of these using elimination, which means I need to eliminate one of them. So we're going to take this second equation and we're going to multiply it by something that will eliminate. And I'm going to use S as the variable I'm going to eliminate. So I'm going to multiply this second equation by -3. This should look familiar from Algebra 2 or Algebra 1. So that gives me in the top equation 6R plus 3S. I didn't change that. And then this one I have -3R minus 3S equals -306. And again, I'm multiplying the entire equation by -3. So now when I combine these equations together, I have 3R, the S's cancel, and then when I subtract here, and 126. And then when I divide by 3, I get 42. So he sold 42 regular tickets. Let's label that as tickets. But I need to plug it back in. If I know that R plus S equals 102, if R is 42, then to solve for S, I need to subtract 42 from both sides. S would equal 60 senior citizen tickets is what he sold. So now I know how many of each type that he sold. Alright, you can stop the video, go back to the live session.